Alright, what is up my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolve video. Alright soldiers, in this video we're going to be doing Havencraft for the set reveals. I'm very excited to see what these crafts are going to be about because I don't really keep up with Haven too often, but I know I have a couple soldiers out there that are watching currently that are going to be very excited to see some Havencraft reveals today. Alright, let's go ahead and start with set 12, World Reaver's Descent. Okay, so looking at Rolla Inferno Dragoon, so she's a 2 cost 2/2. You can evolve her for 2, but when she comes into play Fanfare, you put a repair mode token into your EX area, and if this card is put onto the field by an ability, you can evolve it. Alright, so it looks like Machina is getting some more support here, so this is exactly perfect for what you need for Lamonia, because Lamonia is looking for a 2-less follower to play, and the fact that this says you get to go ahead and put a repair mode for all the repair modes you got rid of to blow up the board, get one back, and then you're able to go ahead and evolve this follower. Alright, so looking at Rolla Evolve, so she turns into a 3/3, but on Evolve you can choose one. You can either 1, select the enemy follower on the field and deal a damage equal to the number of Machina followers on your field, or you can 2, give this follower Storm. Alright, you gotta love the pick 2 effect, so when you're going for the Lamonia play, it looks like you're definitely going to give this follower Storm so you can blow up the entire board, and then have some threat on the board to swing for 3 damage. So now you have a pretty decent board, or if you're like running a whole bunch of Machinas on the field, you have this other ability to look for an enemy follower so you can deal like X amount of damage, X being a total 5 of course, but if you need to go ahead and deal damage to 1 follower, I think that's not a bad ability as well. Alrighty, and next up we have Charlatan Ice Flame Priest. So he's a 5 cost 4/4, but when he comes into play Fanfare, you can bury an amulet, then you can select the enemy follower on the field and deal 4 damage and recover 4 play points, and once on each of your turns when an amulet you control leaves the field, you can deal 1 damage to each enemy leader. Alright, so this is the perfect card for the amulet deck. So not only are you able to just bury amulet on Fanfare, you can really make this a 1 cost follower, so a 1 cost 4/4, and then you can deal 4 damage to an enemy follower, while also this once per turn for those amulets leaving the field. If you choose a card like Eidolon of Madness and you're going to be dealing 3 damage to the enemy leader, well in reality you're going to be dealing a total of 4. Alright, next up we have Goliath Silver Beast Lord. So it's a 6 cost 3/4, and you can evolve from 1, but when it comes into play Fanfare, you can select the Machina follower that costs 2 or less in your cemetery and summon it. You can also activate to banish 2 cards named Repair Mode in your EX area, and you can give this follower Storm. Alright soldiers, so you already know when we're playing Havencraft that we're going to be playing those grindy matchups. So in the late game where our opponent isn't really playing anything too crazy, we're able to play this follower out, and then also play out Rolla. And then Rolla will evolve and we can give Rolla Storm while also giving this follower Storm off of this activate ability. And then we can still evolve this follower at the end of the day as well. Alright, so looking at Silver Beast Lord Evolve, so it turns into a 4/5, but on Evolve you can choose one of the following abilities. You can either 1, select enemy follower on the field and deal it 5 damage, or 2, give each other Machina follower on your field +1/+1. He also still has that activate ability to banish 2 cards named Repair Mode from your EX area to give this follower Storm. Alright, so I really do like this evolve effect because there are some times where your Machina followers might still be stale and might be able to stay afterwards. So being able to buff all of your other Machina followers on the field to swing in for more damage, and then on top of that, if you still have Rolla on the field, she's going to have the Storm and then have that extra damage on top of that too, so you'll be swinging in for a lot. Alrighty, next up we have Robo Whip Reverend. So he's a 2 cost 2/2. When he comes into play Fanfare, you put a repair mode token into your EX area. If this card was put onto the field by an ability, you can give each Machina follower on your field +1/+1. Alright, so we're honestly going to be looking for these 2 cost Machina followers to get out of the cemetery and then play them. So when playing these cards, we do get the repair mode back for, of course, off of the Lamonia evolve and, you know, getting rid of all of them. So being able to replenish the repair mode is just going to be the important part, just to go ahead and get your game mode started. But being able to just have the Machina follower on field, or when this card is put into the field by an ability, you can just go ahead and buff up all your Machina followers that you already had on field. Alright, next up we have Mayor Prayer. So it's a 3 cost spell, so you can choose one. You can give your leader +2 defense, draw 2 cards, or you can search your deck for up to 2 different cards with Meowskers in their names and then summon them. Alright, so I'm liking how this spell card actually has just neutral sort of effects with, you know, if you want to throw this in the Meowskers deck, this has its applications too. So being able to spend 3 is going to let you search up to 2 different cards with Meowskers in their name. So I think you can get the amulet, I'm pretty sure, since it just says cards. You can get the Meowsker Surprise, or you can get the 2 cost Meowskers. So you're able to go ahead and summon them, and then you're able to use it for the 3 cost ability for the spell. Or if you want to use it for its natural applications to go ahead, heal 2 and draw 2, there's that option as well. Okay, and next up we have Holy Light Convert. So she's a 4 cost 1/4. You can evolve for 1 and she has Ward. And at the start of your end phase, you give this follower +X attack, where X equals the number of followers with Ward on your field. All right, so I'm not gonna lie to you, soldiers. Every time I see a card printed with Ward in the Havencraft deck, I know it's just going to be thrown into Wilbert, and we're just gonna get more support for the Storm/Ward deck for Havencraft. So not only do you get to fill up your entire board with wards in that deck, when you throw this card onto the field, you know, for X amount of wards on your field, which are probably going to be 4, if you're, you know, pretty good and confident in your Havencraft Storm Ward game, then getting this follower to a 5/4 at the end phase is going to be pretty important, and your opponent is really going to focus on this card, but you're going to have to realize that there are other wards that they're going to have to worry about too. So if you get really late in the game, I think this is going to be a pretty strong card. But if not, you know, this is just going to be a 4 cost that's a 1/4 with ward, which you can still ward up at the end of the day to have some defense. Alright, so looking at the convert Evolve, so she turns it to a 2/5, but on Evolve you search your deck for a follower with ward that costs 3 or less and then summon it and then shuffle. And then she still has that at the start of your end phase. You give this follower plus X attack, where X is the number of followers with ward on your field. Alright, so soldiers, if you are running the Storm Ward build, then this is the card that is going to go get Holy Falcon. So if you already have Storm/wards on the field already established and you go for this card, you can go ahead and throw out Holy Falcon and not paying the cost because you're just evolving this follower. So going ahead and getting Holy Falcon on the field so you can start pinging for extra damage is probably the most application that I think you're going to be using with this card. But realistically, you can just get any 3-cost ward that is anything that's in your Havencraft deck. So I think that ability in itself is just amazing. Alright, so next up we have Smile Cure Priest. So it's a 3-cost 2/4, and this card can't be played from the EX area, but it has ward, and when it comes into play fanfare, you can give leader +2 defense, but you can also activate for 1 play point to banish this card from your EX area to give your leader +1 defense and then draw a card, and then this follower has the last words to put this card into its owner's EX area. Alright, so look at that, a ward that has the last words that when it's removed, you can put it into your EX area and then has its applications for 1 play point to banish this card to give your leader +1 defense and then drawing a card. Alrighty, next up we have Salvation X Lamonia. So it's a 2-cost spell card, and when playing this card, you can discard a Heavenly Aegis, and this card costs 2 less to play. So you can select a Mocking follower that costs 3 less in your cemetery and then summon it, and if it's a Lamonia's Flawed Saint, you put a repair mode token into your EX area. Alright soldiers, when I tell you how quickly I went to the website to go check and see if Heavenly Aegis was a Machina card, I was just like, whoa, was Heavenly Aegis always a Machina card? And to my surprise, it wasn't. So Heavenly Aegis is a nice late game card that you can be running in the Machina deck because we don't really have a crazy late game in Machina. So being able to have the Heavenly Aegis to fall back on in late game is something that you will be needing. And now it has its secondary requirements here for the Salvation of Lamonia here to being able to be pitched to make this a 2-cost spell card for free. And then you get a Machina follower with 3 or less, so that could be the Rolla, which can turn into Storm. Or we can run the Lamonia Flawed Saint, which is the legendary we are running in the deck, to go ahead and get an extra repair mode into our EX area. Alrighty, next up we have Soul Sister, which is a 4-cost 4/4 with ward, and you can evolve her for 1. Alright, so looking at Soul Sister Evolve, so she turns it to a 5/5, and then she still has ward, but on Evolve you select an enemy following the field and deal it X damage. X equals the number of amulets on your field plus 1. Alright, so I say this is a nice little cute ward follower for the amulet deck, but of course if we're going to be spending a total of 5 play points, we're probably going to be looking more towards playing the Holy Knight. Alright, next up we have Robo Wing Precant. So she's a 2-cost 2/2. When she comes into play fanfare, you put a repair mode token into your EX area. Then if there are at least 3 cards named repair mode in your EX area, you can draw a card. And whenever you play a repair mode, you can select the follower on your field and give it Bane. Alright, so it's not every game where we're playing Machina where we're going to be using our repair modes to heal 1, but when we have the 3 in the EX area, we're going to be doing most of what our deck wants to do. So playing this for 2 is pretty nice because we can go ahead and throw it into the EX area, that being the repair mode of course. Once we have the 3 cards, we can draw a card, which is pretty nice. We get a body on board. And then we get to draw a card, and of course with the other spells that we've looked at throughout the video so far, there's so many ways that we can play 2-cost cards from our cemetery. So being able to use those repair modes as well to give those followers that have the rush, or the followers that are able to have ward and then have to be swung into, giving them Bane is going to be very important for the hard removal. Alright, next up we have Fortune Foul. So it's a 3-cost 4/1 and it has rush, but it also has last words to spend 1 play point to summon a Holy Falcon token. Alright, so every time I see a card printed and it's a bird, I get a little scared because we already have Holy Falcon. Now, we already have the other applications that spawn out those phoenixes. I think there's an amulet deck that has like falcons in it too. So I think this might be one of those applications in it. Of course, it's like a bronze card, so it might not be used. But being able for a total 4 play points to get a follower with rush traded into something and then getting a Holy Falcon token after that isn't bad. but I think it's definitely going to be going in like a huge bird deck for Havencraft. Alright, next up we have Pilgrim's Path. So it's a 1-cost amulet. You can activate for 4 play points to bury this card, give your leader +2 defense while drawing 2 cards, and it also has the last words to summon a Holy Falcon token. Alright, so my goodness, of course you're probably going to be playing this in the early turns, and this kind of does a lot. So you're able for a total of 4 play points, so on turn 4 at earliest, of course, if you play this early, then you'll be able to heal 2, draw 2, and then being able to spawn a Holy Falcon token on the field is pretty nice, but I think it's pretty expensive for a total of 4 play points, of course. Alright, and lastly we have Fiery Pay-In. So it's a 2-cost amulet. You can put a Holy Tiger token into your EX area, then you can also activate to engage this card to select a Holy Tiger on your field and give it Storm. Alright, so I always love the Holy Tiger tokens just because they're naturally 4/4s with Rush, but now we have the applications when we have extra Holy Tiger tokens onto the field, we have a nice little amulet to engage to give those Holy Tigers the Storm that it needs. Alrighty, and then we have our alt for set 12, and it's Rolla Inferno Dragoon, and I'm not going to lie to you soldiers, this card looks really good. So if you're going to be running Machina and you're able to acquire this card, you're definitely going to have like a lot of sauce when playing this card because this art looks absolutely amazing. But of course, moving on into the next set, we have set 13, Dominion of Darkness. Alright, so looking at our first legendary here, we have John Despair's Maiden. So she's a 2-cost 3/2, and you can evolve her for 5, but when she comes into play Fanfare, you give your leader -2 defense, then you can select enemy fall on the field that costs 2 or less and destroy it. Alright, so it's always these Dark Johns that are always negging our health, but whenever we do neg our health, we're able to get some good effects from it. So we can subtract our defense by 2 to remove a 2 or less follower, which is going to be pretty huge, especially in the early game, to stop some early game aggression. But I know when we evolve this follower for 5, we're going to do major effects for giving our leader that minus defense. Alright, so looking at John Evolve, so she turns to a 6/5, but on Evolve, you deal 3 damage to each enemy leader and enemy follower on the field, and then you give your leader +3 defense. Alright, so it looks like when going for the total John's Despair Maiden, it looks like we're going to be at least healing 1 from this Evolve ability, because of course on the unevolved Fanfare, we got to subtract 2. So healing at least 1 is better, and then being able to deal 3 damage to enemy leader while every enemy following the field as well, and then trading into those pesky followers that are still around. Alrighty, next up we have Jatelant, God of Prosperity. So he's a 6-cost 5/5. When he comes into play Fanfare, you banish 2 amulets from your cemetery. You select enemy follow on the field, banish it, deal 3 damage to its leader, and give your leader +3 defense. You can also activate to bury an amulet to summon a Havencraft follower that costs 3 or less, or a Havencraft amulet that costs 3 or less from your hand, and you can activate only once per turn. Alright, so this card really just does a lot. So it's not going to be often where we're going to be pulling amulets out of our cemetery. Being able to play this card, have some hard removal, denying last words, being able to deal 3 damage to face while also healing 3 for us, it's just a lot in a Fanfare. And on top of that, this is a 5/5 body. And then on top of that, we can also activate by burying an amulet to summon any 3-cost follower or amulet from our hand, and those Fanfare goes off, and we can essentially replace the amulet that we just buried off of this activate ability. Alright, and moving on, we have Lunarian Paladin, which is a 2-cost 1/1 that you can evolve for 1, and it also has Ward. Alright, so looking at the Paladin Evolve, so he turns into a 2/2 and he still has Ward, but on Evolve, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may summon a follower that costs 2 or less from among them, put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order, and if the summoned follower has Ward, give your leader +2 defense. Alright, so I know the Storm Ward players are loving this card because not only are we able to evolve and have a 2/2 Ward on the field, if we're able to look at the top 4 and get a MFS Ruby Lion or something like that to swing for some Storm in that term, is going to be very big. Or if we want to play another Ward to go ahead and heal 2 and play on a little bit of the back end, it's not a bad option as well. Alright, so looking at Absolute Tolerance, so it's a 15-cost 10/10. This card costs 5 less to play if you have no cards on your field. This card costs 5 less to play if there are no more than 2 other cards in your hand. And this card costs 5 less to play if there are at least 15 cards in your cemetery. When it comes into play though, you can select an enemy fall on the field and destroy it. Alright, so of course this is going to be a crazy late game card because we don't have 15 play points. So it looks like we can play this card for free as long as we have those 3 requirements, making sure that there are no cards on the field, making sure we have less than 2 cards in the hand, which, you know, that's going to be pretty late in the game. And then making sure we have 15 cards in our cemetery to make sure we can play this free 10/10 that hard remove the follower off the field. Alright, so looking at Silver Beast Lord Evolve, so it turns into a 4/5, but on Evolve you can choose one of the following abilities. You can either 1, select enemy follow on the field and deal it 5 damage, or 2, give each other Machina follow on your field +1/+1. He also still has that activate ability to banish 2 cards, named Repair Mode from your EX area to give this follower Storm. Alright, so pardon me, soldiers, if I mispronounce this, but we have Westminster Abbey. So it's a 3-cost amulet. So during your turn, whenever a follower that costs 2 or less comes onto your field, you can select enemy leader or enemy follower on the field and deal it 1 damage. Alright, so I think this is another Storm Ward application here. So whenever a 2 or less comes onto your field, which is going to be often because we're going to be swinging low to the ground. So being able to ping enemy followers and enemy leaders for at least 1 damage. And then if we have Ruby Falcon on the field, we're going to be pinging for 2. Alright, next up we have Pine Twisted Justice. So she's a 1-cost 1/3. We can evolve her for 2, but she also has Ward. Alright, so looking at the Pine Evolve, so she turns into a 2/4 and she still has Ward, but on Evolve we can select up to 2 enemy followers on the field. They don't refresh during their controller's next start phase. Alright, so I think keeping followers engaged is some sort of removal. I would say is like pretty soft removal. I wouldn't even say it's removal, but just keeping them locked down is just control tools. So if you have a big giant follower that swings for a whole bunch, well, you know, for 3 play points, I'm able to choose 2 of your followers and keep them engaged. They're not able to refresh. You can sacrifice them for abilities, yeah, but I don't have to worry about them for turns, so that gives me an extra turn to really deal with them. Alrighty, next up we have Thornclad Arbiter. So it's a 3-cost 2/2. When it comes into play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may summon an amulet that costs 2 or less from among them, and put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. You can also activate to engage this card to select the amulet on your field and destroy it. Alright, so I'm liking how these ward followers are progressing. So for the amulet deck, of course, we're going to be looking at the top 5, being able to get any amulet that's 2 or less, and then engaging this card, which will engage the ward, so ward will be active. Selecting the amulet on a field that has the last words like Moray Coranium, I think that's the name of the card, but I know the first word is Moray. Being able to get rid of Moray and then using the last words of Moray to get rid of a follower off our opponent's field is just huge. Alrighty, next up we have God's Loving Smite. So it's a 2-cost spell card. So when playing this card, you may bury an amulet as an additional cost. You can select the enemy follower on the field and deal it 3 damage. And if you pay the additional cost, you can deal it 5 damage instead. Alright, so I absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it. More spell cards with removal, and on top of that, being able to bury amulets, because amulets are going to be filling up our field very easily in the amulet deck. Just being able to get rid of those amulets like Eidolon of Madness to deal the enemy leader 3 damage, and then dealing a follower 5 damage on field. Alrighty, next up we have Charitable Almaraz. So she's a 2-cost 2/2. You can evolve her for 1 and she has Ward. Alright, and then looking at Almaraz Evolve, so she turns into a 3/3, but on Evolve you look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a beast card from among them and add it to your hand. Put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. Alright, so I'm sorry soldiers, I don't know what exact beast card we can be looking for the top 4 here. I'm thinking we can get Meowskers, because Meowskers is a beast, so we're either able to get the Meowsker Surprise Amulet card, or we're able to get Meowskers, which isn't a bad option, of course, when playing in the early game for the Storm Ward Haven deck. But, you know, hey, if it works out and there's other beast cards that you're able to get that I'm not really known for, please let me know in the comments below so we can have a good source of information for these beast cards. Alright, next up we have Prismawing Featherfolk. So she's a 2-cost 2/3. When she comes into play, you can discard a card. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a spell or an amulet from among them and add it to your hand. Put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. Alright, so I think this card is huge, not for the fact that we're able to look for an amulet, but we're able to look for a spell. So now we have a way for looking for Dark Offering, a way of looking for Themis Decree. Those spells that are able to do some really good things for our deck that generate us a lot of value that we don't really have a way of, you know, picking up from the top 4. Alright, next up we have Turquoise Sister. So she's a 7-cost 4/7. She has Ward, but when she comes into play, search your deck for a Faith follower with 2 or less attack, and then summon it and then shuffle your deck. Alright, so it looks like the Jewel deck just got an upgrade here. So now in the late game, we have some applications of having a huge ward on the field, and on top of that, we can go ahead and get Diamond Master from our deck. So Diamond Master can start doing the things that it needs to do for that deck. Alright, next up we have Sacred Groundskeeper, which is a 2-cost 0/5. It has Ward, but when it comes into play, if this card wasn't put onto your field from your hand, you can give this follower +2 attack. Alright, so if you manage to cheat this follower out, you can spawn out a nice 2/5 with Ward, but on turn 2, you have a pretty fat Ward to have on the field. So as long as this card wasn't put onto the field from your hand, it's going to be a 0/5, but if you manage to play from Cemetery or even from deck, you're able to go ahead and give it the +2 attack, and it now threatens some damage. Alrighty, and lastly we have Sealed Tome. So it's a 1-cost amulet, and last words you give your leader +1 defense while drawing a card, but you can also activate for 5 play points to engage this card and then bury it, and then you can select enemy follower on the field and destroy it. Alright, so a little expensive in terms of what this ability wants to do, of course. Being able to spend 5 and then just hard removing a follower is nice in terms of play points. But of course, having an amulet for 1 that has last words to being able to draw 1 and then giving yourself +1 defense when using this paired up with Dark Offering is just a lot of value in 1 turn. Alrighty, and then we have our alt for set 13, and it is just the regular Jeanne d'Arc. No cards from this set. It's the 4 cost that deals 2 damage each enemy follower on the field, and then has that amazing evolve card too. But it has the nice little season greetings, so we see Jeanne d'Arc and the little bit Noel art. So if anyone is a sucker for Christmas and enjoys Jeanne d'Arc, I hope you're able to pick this card up. But alrighty, soldiers, that is all the cards for sets 12 and 13 for Havencraft. I do want to apologize to all those Storm/Ward mains out there that I might have offended calling Ruby Falcon Holy Falcon. I'm not sure as in terms of like post editing if I might have already said it, but I do want to go ahead and apologize if I called Ruby Falcon Holy Falcon a couple times. But alright, soldiers, make sure you are safe in whatever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah, TRINN. Just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do. Just to get you away. What I got to do.